Hello and welcome to the City of Cedar Falls Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. I'll call this meeting to order. Before we do roll call, I do just want to mention that tonight we have two new commissioners joining us, so welcome to both Corey Koger and John Fisher for joining the commission. And with that, can we get a roll call, please?
Fisher.
Present.
Greenhill Village.
She is online, but we did not get a chance to test microphone.
Okay. Oksana?
I'm here.
Thank you. Hartley?
Here.
Henderson? Johnson?
Here.
Koger?
Here.
Moser?
Here.
Stallnaker?
Here.
Watkins?
Here.
We have one absent tonight.
Thank you. First up on the agenda is an approval of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look over minutes from our last meeting? And
I move to approve. Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey.
All right. Those will go into record. We do have quite a few people here, so welcome to those of you from the public here. Just real quick housekeeping on how some of these meetings work, if some of you are new to these. We have several different agenda items. For each of them, there will be an opportunity for anyone from the public to speak to any of the items on the agenda. And we'll just ask to try and keep any comments succinct to the category or the subject on the agenda that's on there. And then to start out, we also have a spot on here for public comments for anything that is not on the agenda somewhere else. So at this time, is there anyone who would like to speak to something that is not covered later on the agenda? All right, seeing none.
There's one.
Oh, excuse me, pardon. Come on up. Yep, name and address for the record, please.
Matt Hine, Alvarado Avenue, 511, here in Cedar Falls. So we've been in the news lately, and people are wondering about us. So quick opening comment and then another comment related to Section 7, but I think this might be useful to be separate. So people are wondering about the West Industrial Park. So quick formal commentary. Who is Simple Mining? Members of the commission, good evening. My name is Matt Hine, and I am the Director of Energy, Infrastructure, and Site Development at Simple Mining. Before I address Section 7, the ordinance language, I wanted to take a moment to tell you who we are, because I think the context matters for this conversation. We're not outsiders. We've been contributing to the local economy for over 5 years. We're your neighbors, parents, fellow community members. Our founder, Adam Haynes, started this company right here, attending you and I, fixing broken cell phones. That same spirit of hands-on problem solving drives our entire company operation. Our employees are buying homes here. Our kids go to school here. I go to church with some of you. The contractors who build and maintain our operations live and work in Cedar Falls and the surrounding community. So what do we do at Simple Mining? Despite the name, we're not just a cryptocurrency company. We're a technology, infrastructure, and hosting company, and a repair company headquartered right here in Cedar Falls. We're not outsiders. We provide infrastructure for customers to run high-performance computing hardware. Our growing team of repair technicians are skilled at diagnostics, microsodding, and other high-tech maintenance work. These are the exact kinds of skilled, well-paying jobs that keep families in the community and keep our young people from moving away. We deploy application-specific integrated circuits. ASICs is what they're called. To think of it this way, just as a circuit made in your pocket calculator is designed for math, our computers are built to secure digital transactions, similar to online banking. Our industry is evolving. The same physical infrastructure that hosts blockchain workloads today is transitioning towards server platforms capable of supporting AI, clinical research, edge computing, and cloud computed hosting. We've been collaborating with CFU since 2021 to support the utility grid. As a demand response resource, we can power down almost instantly during peak demand. We've done that multiple times this year and in many times throughout previous years. As one utility member put it in a board meeting, curtailment capability is like having a free power plant. The community gets grid reliability, the utility gets steady, manageable load, and we get to compete globally while staying local. I want my future grandchildren to live and work near me. I want Cedar Falls to be home. That's why we build. We build infrastructure to support community growth, and we build in-house training for high-tech jobs. It's simple. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments about anything not on the agenda later on?
This is on the agenda later on.
Yeah, he could have waited.
Okay, seeing none. So we do have some old business that I believe we're going to push forward to our next meeting. So after that, we can jump into new business, which is a College Hill design review for a new duplex at 2110, 2112 Iowa Street. And I believe Chris is going to take this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair Stallnaker. Good evening, Commissioners. Let's see. So the applicant on this case is proposing to construct a new two-family duplex with attached garages at the rear facing the alley, and the subject property is just south of 21st Street on Iowa Street. In College Hill, and it's in the College Hill neighborhood overlay, which requires this design review for this. Looking at the property a little bit closer, up on the screen you can see what the applicant is proposing. Two-family duplex there with 4 bedrooms in each unit. You can see the driveways going to the rear and fronting Iowa Street. There is an existing driveway off of Iowa Street that is going to be removed as part of this project. And then we also have a landscape plan that shows 5 overstory trees and some shrubs that will be in the front. Let's talk a little bit about the design of the project. Other houses around the proposed site include a mix of 1-story and 2-story homes. The proposed 2-unit dwelling will be 2 stories and have a front facade approximately 56.5 feet wide. The facade is articulated with a separate front porch for each unit, which helps to reduce the scale of the building. At least visually, giving the appearance of separate units that are similar in scale to single unit dwellings in the neighborhood. And you can see the examples up on the screen. Of course, most of the one of the architectural styles that we see here is a 4-square style, a traditional style that we see across America, built early 20th century. That's kind of what this tends toward. And you can see, in Cedar Falls, most of the front porches have been enclosed or screened in. That's not what's proposed here necessarily, but it still follows the same style. Staff finds that this is generally consistent with the neighborhood character in the area, and with that, staff recommends approval of this case, subject to any comments or direction that the Planning and Zoning Commission may have, and conformance to all city staff recommendations and the technical requirements. I'm available for questions if you have any.
Thank you. Are there any immediate questions for staff from the commission?
I just have one question. So I know we haven't passed our new College Hill rezoning yet, but I'm wondering how much of the recommendations from there were taken into your recommendations here to ask us to approve.
That's a good question. So there are a couple elements in this that may not. I mean, I think just some small modifications might have been required under the new code that we have, but not a lot. I think there's some green space requirements in there that would have modified a few things, but otherwise, in terms of the style and design, it's addressing the street really with the residential character to the street was a big factor here, and a lot of the back and forth that we had with the developer on that involved kind of maintaining that aesthetic and integrity with the neighborhood character.
Is the applicant here and wanting to speak to this item at all?
Here, don't have any comment.
No comment from the applicant, that's fine. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item at all? So seeing none, before we as a commission discuss, I would entertain a motion to bring it to the commission.
I would move to approve. Second that.
All right.
I was going to say, I'd just like to say, I like the fact that it's a modern construction, but it fits the character of the neighborhood. I think it fits in pretty well, the design of it, so I think it's a good fit.
I agree.
Any other thoughts or questions from the commission at all? Otherwise, we would, let's see, we have a motion, we have a second, so I guess we would be looking for a roll call vote, please.
Watkins.
Aye.
Stallnaker.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Koger.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Henderson. Oh, sorry, she's absent. Hartley.
Aye.
Grubevich.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
That motion carries. So that will go on to council then.
Thank you very much. And next up is another College Hill design review, this time for a new projecting sign at 917 West 23rd, and I think Chris has this again.
Yes, thank you. This is very similar to a case that we talked about. Maybe was it last time? Goodwill had a sign that went in College Hill on 23rd Street. Very similar, just literally next door to Goodwill there. We have this property at 917 West 23rd. It is a 3-story mixed-use building that was built in 2016 with retail on the ground floor and residential apartments above. So the Bing Ladies establishment is proposing a new projecting sign underneath a similar projecting sign belonging to Greenhouse Kitchen, which is in the adjacent storefront. The proposed sign extends 3 feet into or over the 23rd Street sidewalk. It has a sign area of 6 square feet, a clearance of 12 feet above the sidewalk, which the requirement typically is 8 feet, and the cabinet is it's a lighted cabinet sign, which there are several in College Hill. And fairly straightforward. With that, staff recommends approval of this case, subject to any comments or directions specified by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff from the commission? Is the applicant here and would like to speak to this item at all? Not seeing so. So then is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? And then I would entertain a motion to bring it to the commission.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any thoughts or discussion at all?
Seems like just like the same, like the Goodwill sign, so I would agree.
All right. Then can we have a motion and a second? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Fisher.
Aye.
Grubevich.
Aye.
Hartley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Koger.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Stallnaker.
Aye.
Watkins.
Aye.
That motion carries and will be sent to council.
Thank you. Next up is a preliminary plat for Greenhill Village Commons on south of Lloyd Lane, east of North Drive, and along Lauren Drive extended. And I believe Michelle has this one.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? All right. The property, as mentioned already, is also south of Greenhill Road and east of Hudson Road. The applicant proposes 16 lots for single-unit dwellings and a storm basin. This is a replat of an existing subdivision called Greenhill Village Townhomes 2 Phase 1. The applicant also proposes to remove the access easements recorded on the plat, as well as providing a fee in lieu of the neighborhood park dedication. A small background that the Greenhill Village Master Plan was originally approved in 1998. In 2025, City Council approved a revision for a future land use map amendment for Greenhill Village, as well as a Greenhill Village Master Plan amendment. And in that master plan amendment included amending the mixed-use residential zoning district development procedures agreement. As indicated in the Development Procedures Agreement, the applicant agreed to provide design standards that included adding 1 to 2 story floor plans, keeping the houses between 13,000 to 18,000 square feet, and having a craftsman style design. These will be indicated in the deed of dedication for it can be continued to be reviewed. They also proposed a landscaping plan that reviewed the master plan amendment, reviewed the landscaping plan for the MU district, and it met the requirements of the MU district. The applicant has indicated in a deed of dedication that they will install that landscaping, and then the maintenance will be by the homeowners. The lot configurations for these 16 lots are also include the 4 tracks, 3 of them for the right-of-way and 1 for the stormwater detention. The lot sizes will be from 9,495 to 12,000 square feet. And as part of the MU district, the setbacks are going to be 30 feet from the front, rear, and perimeter setback, and then 10 feet side yard setback. So they're proposing the 16 lots to be one phase, and this is an infill development that will complete the street network of the existing development and neighborhood. The dark blue shows the street connections. The purple shows on the screen shows where the sanitary sewer is going to be extended, including extending the sanitary sewer along North Drive to the end of the plat. And then the stormwater will be placed in that blue, light blue square. The stormwater has been reviewed by the city engineer, and they concur with the engineer for the project. And then the deed of dedication, the developer will be maintaining the stormwater management until the homeowners association is established. And then, as you might remember, the city had adopted Your City, Your Parks, a master plan, as well as park dedication code last year. And in that code provision is having a developer provide 6 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents and not to exceed 10% of the development. This translates to 0.174 acres of land, or in this case, with the 16 acres and the 5.22 acres they're developing, equals 0.27 acres. This is the size of one of their larger lots. The applicant has proposed to provide a fee in lieu. As part of the criteria for the fee in lieu, the size of the park usable, and a quarter of an acre is not that usable. Is the park with it, or is there an existing park that is in walking distance? In this case, we do have parks to play that is in place to play that's in walking distance, and then we will also provide this to Parks and Recreation Commission in their special meeting tomorrow for their recommendation. And then finally, we would look at the easement vacations. There's 3 criteria for vacating easements. And is the easements needed for public use? The easements are actually for access and stormwater, so there would be no public social use for these easements, and there would be no need to have these easements to access other utility lines. And then finally, if the utilities within the easements are needed, this development never moved forward, so the easements are not needed. Before I forget, on your dais tonight, there was one public comment that was sent by email and recommended that vehicles would travel Lauren Drive for the development. And this was also forwarded to the applicant. And with that, I recommend to gather public comment and review this again on the April 8th meeting after Planning and Zoning, Park and Recreation's recommendation. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. I did have a question regarding the email that we received that you mentioned, where a neighbor, presumably, recommended that the trucks use Lauren Drive, and you said you'd forward that to the developer. Is that the kind of thing that limiting the road access for a developer, is that common? I don't know if I've heard of that concept much before with other developments.
The city has done that in the past for our development, but it is something that the developer would be maintaining and regulating.
So I think it's really a question for the developer in this case. We do sometimes ask them, particularly if there's a lot of traffic that's going to be coming through a residential neighborhood that's already built out, if they can use a specific route, and certainly a lot of developers will agree to that if it's reasonable. So it's a question really, I think, for the developer in this case.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff from the commission?
I have a question. So the intent, as I understand it, of the park dedication is that everyone is within half-mile walking distance of the park. So in this case, when there already is place to play within a half-mile of this development,
Correct.
So we are still requiring that either they pay the fee or they obviously provide that, even though they do have an existing park within walking distance that serves that many residents. Is that fair to say?
So the requirement is that if there is an existing park in the neighborhood, the fees then go to add new elements to an existing park.
Okay.
And the idea is you add more residents to the neighborhood, you have more people using the park. The idea is that the fee is then proportional to the number of residents that they're adding to the neighborhood.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Question. Is the applicant here and would like to speak to this item at all tonight?
Not here, welcome to answer questions.
Okay. Here for questions, but not necessarily needing to speak at the moment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? Please come on up. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Robin Frost, 4718 Addison Drive in Cedar Falls, and I'm the mystery person who sent the email as well. Certainly appreciate you bringing that up, Michelle, and I just wanted to more fully explain my reasoning behind sending that message and the concerns that I have. I don't have any concerns about the proposed development itself. I think it's a good use of the space there and will finish out the neighborhood well. I do live 2 houses away from that area, and so I just had some concerns about the truck traffic that might be involved with the construction process, understandably. Our neighborhood neighborhood, for your information, just endured the multi-year construction of Cedar stone right behind our homes. So forgive me for being a little bit concerned ahead of time about what we might be up for this project. So just concerned about that truck traffic, maybe safety of children. There are established homes right nearby. Just thinking ahead to that. Also thinking ahead to things like blocked driveways, not being able to get to your own property and things like that during the construction process. Noise as well is a concern. I know during the construction of Cedar Stone there were a lot of activities after hours, overnight hours that we didn't expect, that I would hope wouldn't be the case in this project. So I did suggest in my email a construction management plan where they tried to access the site via Lauren Drive, which has no homes on it right now, is totally free of residences, and it just seems to make sense to have as much of the truck traffic go that route as possible, rather than on Addison Drive. I think that's it.
Thank you very much. Could maybe the applicant now come up to maybe address a couple of these concerns, if that would work?
Yeah, Kevin Fitro with Greenhill Village. If you look at the map, I would say from most of the traffic, the more legitimate route is going to be from Algonquin to Lauren Drive. I don't see an issue during street construction. That is probably how most of the traffic will come in, and the road to the residents would probably be blocked off while we're putting the city street in. Once that's done, you're talking about 2-3 houses being built at a time. So you're not talking about heavy traffic. You're not talking about a major multiplex. We're not working at night. So I really don't see the concerns, that were there maybe back then. We will ask that most of the traffic stay to that north. There are some trucks, there are some companies that come out of the south. We'll again ask them to go around and come around, but I can't guarantee that there won't be some traffic on a city road. So we will do our best to make sure the residents are well kept while we're building. Okay.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak to this item at all? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion here.
Are we moving this on?
Oh, that's right. We're not going to move to approve. So do we need a motion to go forward or bring it back for comment and then?
I think we can just, if you have information you want us to bring back next time, otherwise we would just then continue it to the next meeting.
So any comments from the commission at all?
I think it looks like a good fit. We've seen a proposal come before that didn't make it through, and I think this is a better complement to the area. So.
I love infill as well, so that's great to fill in some spots that could use it. Sure. So we will carry this forward. This allows the Parks and Rec Commission an opportunity to review the fee in lieu, and then we will discuss it at our next meeting on April 8th. Thank you very much. Next item of new business is a rezoning for 38.25 acres within West Viking Road Industrial Park from M1P Planned Light Industrial District to M2 Heavy Industrial District. I believe Michelle has this, and just for my clarification and maybe the clarification of anybody in the room, we do have two different agenda items, but I think a lot of the people attending and the questions are going to be kind of pertaining to both. So what can we expect as far as, I believe there's a presentation on the zoning text for the next item. Will some of that information come through here, or should we recommend maybe people hold most of their comments until both of these items have been brought forward for educational purposes, or is there any thought on that?
I guess the fee itself. And so if most of the concerns that people are expressing are about the use of the property in the future and are related to the code amendments that are happening in the next item, I would reserve your comments for that particular item. That would be, I guess, maybe keep the two separate items differentiated, I guess, on the agenda.
Okay.
So
thank you for the guidance on that one. Appreciate it. We're just not 100% sure what we're going to see, so I'm looking forward to the information. So I do believe Michelle has this item as well.
Correct. Thank you. So the proposed rezoning is within our industrial park, north of Technology Parkway and west of Innovation Drive. The CFU is Cedar Falls Utilities is planning to build a major new power generation facility called Viking Energy Center on the property to meet the future needs of the community. As mentioned already, later tonight, our consultant will be talking over the changes of the zoning ordinance for allowing the public utilities in the M2 zoning district. So the criteria is fairly simple for rezoning. Looking at the current zoning of the M1P Plan Light Industrial District, and we are proposing the new rezoning of an M2 Heavy Industrial District, which allows a variety of both commercial and industrial uses. The city has been working with CFU to locate the major utility in this area. Heavy Industrial District also allow uses that are more intense, and some of these uses include outdoor areas or taller or larger buildings. Also, we'll be looking at a change of the master plan at our next meeting. The next criteria is the compliance with our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan for this area is industrial, so the request for the M2 heavy industrial is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And then the next criteria is the access to public services. Lots 8, 9, 10 of West Viking Industrial Park Phase 5 are already connected to those public utilities, and no new infrastructure will be needed for this rezoning. And then the last one is access to adequate street network. As mentioned already, that these properties are connected and subdivided to provide that adequate street network. And I also wanted to note that we've received some public comments, and those public comments are on your dais today. And with that, staff recommends the commission discuss and hear public comments and then set the public hearing for April 8th to discuss this further. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Does the commission have any questions for staff at this time?
The CFU power plant fit in the light? The CFU, we don't need the heavy industrial district to accommodate the CFU power plant out there.
Yes, we do with the code amendments. So right now, we have a really old ordinance, as you know, a zoning ordinance, and we've got an outdated list of uses, and for some reason, utilities are not listed anywhere in the Cedar Falls zoning ordinance. So to rectify that, we are going to add public utilities to the list of allowed uses in the industrial areas. And because of major utility like a power plant or a wastewater treatment plant or something like that, that would be a major utility. Those seem appropriate in the M2 heavy industrial district. So the code amendments that are coming up in the next item would then add public utilities, major public utilities to the M2 district, not to the M1 district, and so we would recommend rezoning this property for CFU's power plant to M2 heavy industrial.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the public hearing timing. So next meeting, we already have the Meadow Ridge edition, which has historically been a very well-attended meeting with lots of public comment. And I have concerns about also scheduling this on the same night. I think to give adequate public comment, I wonder if we shouldn't split those up. And so I wasn't sure if I could suggest that or ask us to consider that.
It's kind of up for the commission to decide. You have the right to suggest a specific public hearing date if you want to postpone this to the next P&Z meeting. That would be within your purview to do that.
That would feel like possibly what we end up making the motion on is when we set the public hearing. Would that be?
Yeah, that works
agreeable?
for me. Yep.
When would we hear thoughts on the Energy Center? You know, we're kind of potentially defining a use for this new area before the original use is kind of decided, potentially.
I'm not exactly sure your question. Like, well, what do you mean?
You know, the intent is to put an energy center or power plant here.
Right.
But we're talking about doing a building that was intended to come after the power. Well, I guess that was thought up after the power plant location. So when would we hear comments about? I mean, I guess I'm already thinking about like noise or, you know, other environmental things that might come because of that.
Related to the power plant?
Yes.
So I guess that would be if you were considering whether we should allow power plants in the city of Cedar Falls. We have to decide which zone we're going to allow those in. So we obviously need power plants in Cedar Falls. So the purview here would be to discuss on the next item, is it appropriate to allow power plants? Which zone should it be allowed in? Staff is suggesting that it be allowed in the M2 heavy industrial district. There is another possibility because it is a public facility, and public facilities can be zoned public. So that is also a separate item that could be brought forward later. So there's a couple different options here. We're suggesting the M2 is appropriate for a major public utility like a power plant or a wastewater treatment plant or those kinds of facilities that cities need to operate. So does that kind of answer your question? There won't be any site plan that comes through the Planning and Zoning Commission. Well,
I just have potential concerns about noise, environmental stuff, but we don't know what the aspects of a power plant might be as well. Because we're having potentially two of these same types of facilities in that land, which might have similar concerns for the people in the area.
Sure, and we do have somebody from CFU here tonight, so they could maybe answer some of those questions that you might have.
Okay.
And along with that question, so the site plan for utility company does not come before planning and zoning. What oversight of the location and the site plan then is had?
Just like a lot of industrial uses, they're just allowed in the industrial zones, and they have to meet all the zoning requirements. So CFU has to meet all the setbacks and height requirements and height limits. They would have to meet any screening requirements for parking lots, et cetera. So all the requirements in our industrial park would then apply to this use, just like every other use in the park.
So I don't want to jump into the next. We're going to do a lot of definition of what the sound of crypto mining is. Are there any considerations for this M2 zone area for noise?
So the city has a noise ordinance, and so there's already limits on noise in our industrial park that they're in place right now.
Okay.
And are they different between M1 and M2?
No.
And then this is probably a dumb question, but if we're going to then rezone, where the current CFU, would that be rezoned to M2 then? And then
there's a lot of questions
water
about,
plant is?
There's a lot of questions about a lot of the old zoning that we have in the city, and we could go down that rabbit hole, but that's not really on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay, with the city of Cedar Falls being the petitioner, but you did mention, I guess, CFU is here, so would this be an appropriate time to ask CFU if they would like to speak to this at all?
Good evening. My name's Tom Reese. I am the project manager for the Viking Energy Center for Cedar Falls Utilities. So, yeah, we're kind of been working on an exciting project for the last 3-4 years to expand our to bring kind of long-term reliability and affordability for our Cedar Falls Utilities customers. We've been discussing with the city several options that will site this new electric production plant near our existing electrical infrastructure, which is the Viking substation, which sits directly west of where we're planning to, where we would like to put this. The gentleman had a question about noise. The technology going in are large reciprocating engines. These are very fast starting, fast stopping. They're very reliable. They work well with a lot of the renewable energy that's in our area. And we visited several plants that are like this. And from the outside, you can't even tell that it's a power plant. It looks much like many of the other buildings in the industrial park. And it'll be totally enclosed. You won't be able to hear it while it's running. And then this 38 acres that we're looking to acquire, if we can rezone it, is so we have allowable setbacks. We have plenty of buffer area so that we can do whatever we need to do to mitigate, for aesthetics and noise and everything. But we don't, it's all closed loop water systems. That we're not digging any on-site wells. We don't have any water discharge. It's just, it's going to look a lot like other buildings that are out there. Are there?
And you're referring to the power plant portions?
Yes, this 38 acres is basically, we're looking to own that CFU as, to locate our facility there. And then we have room for future expansion as we need to. But we chose that primarily because we have 161 kV and 69 kV lines in our existing Viking substation there. So it just seems like the natural place for us to site that. Eventually, just more information about it. There's many reasons why why we're doing this, and one of them is we have a aging electric infrastructure generating facilities in Cedar Falls Utilities generation portfolio, and we can't afford to replace all of this at once. And so we go to great lengths to, over the years, to develop trust with our ratepayers, with our customers, and we want to do the right thing by our customers. And so having ownership of local generation is better than relying on somebody else for the generation. It's more economical, it's more reliable, and so we can't replace all of our electric generation at one time. So by adding this facility there, this allows us a more responsible way, more economical way to kind of replace our existing infrastructure over the years. So we think this is a good approach. We have 65% renewable energy in our area that serves our customers, and it's important that the reliability be there, that when the wind quits blowing or the sun goes down, that we have something that doesn't have to run all the time and be inefficient. These generators that we're proposing, they start and come online very fast, like within 5 minutes, and then we can shut them down as well. And it does allow more renewable energy to make it into our community because we don't have to have spinning reserves for that. So they're very efficient. They help keep the electric bills low, we believe, because we do have control over the local generation. And if there ever was a grid emergency, this facility would be key in, a black start situation, or if there was a peak in the wintertime, peak in the summertime, our customers and they rely on us, and so we provide essential services, and that's what we're trying to continue to provide. So for us, that's the main reason what we're doing, what we're working on. We started on this back in 2022, and we're looking to own the whole thing here. We're kind of separate from the crypto mining issue. So any other questions I can answer, I'd be glad to.
Not seeing any at this point. Thank you very much.
I guess I would have one question. Just
Yes, sir.
Because you guys already do own crypto mining stuff, would there be any possibility of locating future installations on this site?
My understanding is, I haven't been involved in those discussions personally. I think we're looking at, we're adamant that we want to own it, the whole thing, and that I know. And we just want to be able to have room for future expansion. So I can't talk to if Bitcoin or crypto mining is going to be on that site. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so next portion of the process here is I would welcome public comment, anyone who would like to speak to this item. And again, on the next one, we're going to have zoning text amendments regarding cryptocurrency mining. So this for right now is to allow that parcel to be changed its zoning from M1 to M2 so that CFU could build their power station. Just to be clear on that. But yeah, with that, I'd welcome you to come on up and just name and address for the record, please. Up at the.
Mine kind of plays off exactly what you just left us with. Hi, Andrea Kettle, and I live at 5315 Red Oak Lane in Cedar Falls. This, I guess, is more for you. What restrictions will be placed on like Cedar Falls utilities and how the rezoned land will be used, and also who it could be leased to?
So I think is normally we'd kind of like to have a lot of public comment, and then we can kind of keep track of some questions, so that way if there are several for the applicant, we'd be able to have them answer them all together. So we got that written down, land use for the space. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charity Nebby, and I do not live in Cedar Falls. I did grow up at 2027 South Union Road, and that's where my parents, right there, live, and I'm here tonight speaking on their behalf. And if you'd like to put the map back up, I can also show you where they live. The Cedar Falls Industrial Park has really engulfed the land around my parents' home. The city has annexed my parents' land, and I do want to start, so if you look at the map, you see the green zone. Up to the left, all of the trees, the ponds, that's my parents' land. And I do want to tell you a little bit about our family. We moved here in 1981, and if we had a family motto, it would be live your values. My mother was an elementary school counselor here in Cedar Falls for many years, and she also founded two volunteer organizations that endure. She is the co-founder of the Black Hawk Wildlife Rehabilitation Project and also Pet Pals, which is a pet facilitated therapy organization that just celebrated its 42nd year. And so throughout my childhood, my brother is also here, he'll speak, I'm sure. We dedicated thousands of hours to volunteer work as a family. And, you know, we raised wild animals, we spoke to public groups, we worked very hard on educating people in the community about animals and the environment. And we also managed to acquire this land, 22 acres of land. And because we live our values, we wanted to heal that land and restore it to a natural ecosystem. So in the early 1980s, reconstructing prairie was not a very common thing to do. It was a very difficult thing to do, and the first time we tried, we absolutely failed. But we have many beautiful acres of tall grass prairie now. We planted a hardwood forest. We have dug 2 ponds. We have really created an environmental oasis in an area that was entirely surrounded by farmland and residential. So in the years as the industrial park has taken over that land, we have been so committed to staying where we are, and we've had a strong relationship with the city. I'm sure that many of you have probably talked to members of my family over the years, and And we decided that we would stay, as my parents have wanted to age in place and be connected to this land, even as the industrial park grew up around us. And we just heard that this plan has been in the work for years to build the new power plant. That means to me that the rezoning of this land to heavy industrial is also a plan that has been in the work for years. And this is certainly the first time we've heard of this. We've dealt with a lot of construction. We've dealt with some of our fencing being damaged. We have dealt with poor erosion control, creating silt that has filled in our ponds, but we are committed to staying there. This is our family legacy. This is something we really believe in healing this land and staying on it. And it's been, a challenge to stay as the land has changed around us, but rezoning to heavy industrial, the land that is adjacent to our property, has really come out of left field. And we're extremely concerned about the noise and the heat and the environmental impact. We're concerned about the value of our land. All of our neighbors are gone, and houses have been bulldozed, and we've seen the land flattened. We've never received an offer from the city of Cedar Falls to buy us out, and we were not particularly open to that either, because we thought, okay, with light industrial, we will stay on this land, we are committed to this area. And now I'm very concerned that as my parents are trying to age in place, and my brother also lives on the land, I'm very concerned that their quality of life will be deeply impacted. The wildlife that lives on our property will be deeply impacted. The domestic animals that live on our property will be impacted. And I also see their property values plummeting. So if this is untenable and they need to flee, this is not only emotionally devastating, but also a situation that is financially devastating as well. And I know that a city needs to grow, and I understand economic development, and I know that Cedar Falls, Iowa doesn't make its decisions based on the needs of one family, but I do think that all of you also have legacy to think about. And I am concerned about heavy industry here. I am concerned about a crypto mine and an investment in that kind of technology that will enrich a few people, but it will not, in my personal opinion, enrich the community. It is not a long-term investment with vision and legacy in mind. And I just ask you to think hard about living your values and what Cedar Falls wants to be in the future. What is the legacy of this community? So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nathan Nebby. So Charity is my sister. This is Dennis. This is Linda. They're my parents. I live at 2027 South Union Road. I am out there every day, multiple times a day. So I can tell you right now that everything that they do, I will see, I will hear. It will impact our place in myriad ways. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit differently than my sister has, because I did have direct interactions with the city of Cedar Falls, with their planning department. So just a few years ago, and it sounds like actually this whole thing might have actually started to be planned when the city of Cedar Falls was telling us that this industrial park was going to be light industrial, and that's what they sold us with. We were not part of Cedar Falls. We were, not happy, but we were amenable. We didn't put up a fight. We allowed Cedar Falls to annex us. Even with the issues that cropped up during development, our land being absolutely flooded with erosion coming off of the industrial site as it was prepared. We were still working with the city. We didn't put up a fuss. We didn't threaten you with lawsuits, which we, at this time, I sort of feel like, wow, maybe we should have. We tried to cooperate and collaborate. Now, my family's been here for 40 years, actually 45. I have been intimately involved with the rewilding of this property. When I go out, especially this time of year, beavers, ducks, otters, all sorts of different animals that actually live where we live. We've done wildlife rehab up until very recently. Obviously, my parents' health is suffering. We have basically taken in the Cedar Falls and Cedar Valley community. Tens of thousands of people have come through our place, and we've helped them for no cost. We have been exemplary citizens. Granted, our land wasn't inside Cedar Falls at the time, but we were serving Cedar Falls. My mother was an elementary school counselor in Cedar Falls. She was a professor at UNI. I am an educator now. I am a science teacher. While, yes, some of our activities have actually decreased recently, that won't always be the case. But we do have issues, obviously, with respect to health and other things like that. So I was incredibly, I guess you might say, just flat out hurt when a couple days ago we get this letter telling us that for a crypto mine, I'm sorry, that's what it is. Here's the chair. We've been there for
Sir, if you could adjust the chair, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's not acceptable.
Well, he did push and come up first, okay? We've been there for 40 years. Now, that was a gut punch. It really was. To me, what it meant is that you guys were lying to me when we talked, when we met, when we agreed to do this. Now, a crypto mine. What do we know about crypto mining? A lot of electricity. A lot of electricity, a lot of water. Very resource intensive. This is not a light operation. This is heavy industry. This should be heavy industry. And as far as, you know, we've dealt with Cedar Falls Utilities before. A lot of nice people, love their customer service. They built their substation right next to our back property, right next to our trees. Fine, live with that. But then to discover that this has been in the works since 2022, nobody's talked to us. The city's been talking, you know, the city's been telling us one thing. And as far as Cedar Falls Utilities, yeah, one of the problems is they're invested in coal. They have these white elephants sitting around. That's their electricity generating. Yes, they buy renewable energy off the market. And it's about 2/3. And yes, I do follow a little bit what happens with Cedar Falls Utilities. I'm a science teacher, but also I've had dealings with them. As far as what I see in terms of the future is, first off, the fact that nobody's talked to us in that amount of time absolutely slays me. I mean, we're 22 acres. We're right there. We were annexed. But there is so much insecurity here, so much doubt, such a lack of information. You don't build a power plant. That is not trivial. Crypto mining is not trivial. And we have been, I think, as good as citizens to this community as possible. I love Cedar Falls. I graduated from Cedar Falls High School. I came back to Cedar Falls. So I think this definitely deserves a whole lot more consideration. This is not to me it feels like this is being rushed through because I've only known about it for a couple days. You guys know where to find me. 2027 South Union Road, right next to the industrial park. Just down the road from where you guys have your, you know, what is it? One of your installations. So wow, the substation too. But so I'll give you my number afterwards if you want to talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Can I say something while I'm just sitting here?
We do need to have it at the microphone, so that way it's on the record. I'm sorry for that.
Sorry.
I don't know. Can the microphone move? Is it portable?
Yeah.
If it has enough of a cord, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Our place has been something that we have thought about for years and years, that when we're gone, it's going to be a real asset, a real place of joy, of nature for people of Cedar Falls. And what we were hit with 2 days ago just absolutely was like getting banged over the head. I don't know if we follow, or if they follow through with everything they're talking about, a crypto mining operation, power plant, and all of that, that if we're right next to it, and we are, it sits right on our fence. I believe the value of our property is going to go down anywhere from 50 to 75%, because I don't know who would want to live there under those conditions. And we're not looking at, we were thinking that as everything moved along, and my wife and I hopefully die in place, but Nathan has given up over 40 years of his life to being our forester and all those other things that my wife has had camps for a week at a time for underprivileged children out at our place every summer for, well, I suppose 15, 16 years, where these kids that had never been in nature could come out and they might have a snake around their neck, or they might, you know, all kinds of things, frogs, just wonderful kind of stuff. The other thing, when the substation went in out there for well, south of us, you know, we had many discussions with them, and they made some sacrifices and stuff, but I can only tell you that before that substation went in, we had a colony of bats, probably over 300 to 400 bats that lived at our place, and all summer long we never ever had a mosquito problem, because we had 300 to 400 bats going out every night to take care of that. We probably have less than 30 bats living at our place now. Things have changed. We've raised multitudes of fawns there, and coyotes and fox and bunnies and eagles and all kinds of other birds of prey, barred owls and great horned owls, and we've even raised swans and other birds coming through but anyway, it's just been a joy to serve the Cedar Falls area, and this letter I received 3 days ago just hit me like somebody hit me with a shovel. I mean, we've given 40 years and we've helped, we think, hundreds and thousands of kids and so on, and we went to all the meetings when they were talking about expanding the industrial park, and it was all based on M1 light industrial and office buildings and so on, and that's what we were, okay, we had an Amazon distribution center go in and a Pepsi Frito-Lay distribution and so on, but that's what we thought we signed on for. Now we're talking about something that we didn't sign on for, something that is going to probably destroy the value of our property and undo what we've tried to do over 40 years. So that's really all I've got to say. I just it was just a real shock to me, and my son and daughter, as you can see, they're very emotionally invested in this too, and I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak to this item here? Name and address for the record, please.
Dylan Southall, 510 Franklin Street. I just have a question for the representative of Cedar Falls Utilities.
So if you could address the commission, we will take note and we'll ask the question for you.
I think the public deserves an answer on if this $64 million power plant that's going in had any engineering considerations for any possible lease spaces on the property. And if so, what were they?
And so just to double check, but just lease, did you say lease spaces?
Any leased spaces, if they're, the plant is designed to run on a variable load. Mm-hmm. Was the design of this plant and the cost of this plant, were there any considerations going all the way back to 2022 with any possible investment or future leased spaces on this same property? I plan on speaking probably on the next space, but I'll hold any other comments until then.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else from the public on this agenda item? Otherwise, we do have a couple questions maybe for the applicant, if for CFU, or for CFU, if that would be okay.
Same question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were several questions. The gentleman that was just there, when we started this back in 22, we were, as electric production manager at that time, we were simply looking for, some sort of succession plan to start planning for the future. And, we weren't even associated with Bitcoin mining or anything. That wasn't part of this decision when we presented this to our Board of Trustees, and we had feasibility study done to, verify what we were recommending. And so, yeah, we don't have any. That was not part of the plan when we started this back in '22. We started it, and we're just getting to this point now because there's long lead items. We ordered a transformer that takes 3 years to be built. I'm just thinking about there was nothing associated with Bitcoin mining or crypto mining or anything when this was simply a matter of trying to plan for the future for our electric generating facilities. It's as simple as that. I know there's been some discussion with people above me that, whether or not they are in the area there, if they end up setting up an oration there, I don't know. So there was another question, and I don't remember the question that I think it's both that the young lady had.
I wanted to know, what restrictions are going to be placed on you? Will you be able to lease land out to whomever you want once it's rezoned for you? And then, are there any stipulations or restrictions on how to use the rezoned land?
Right. So if there's going to be our Board of Trustees is going to have to approve any of that if we do a lease of anything. But my understanding right now is that we don't have any of that at this facility right now. So we're looking, we were adamant about getting the entire property and for future expansion needs for ourselves, and like I said, for setbacks and whatever is going to be required so that we can be good neighbors. And so I don't know, you said environmental, you wanted?
Oh, just kind of in general, what restrictions can you guys then, once it's rezoned, use it for whatever you basically want, or what kind of restrictions would there be?
This might be a good question too, maybe for staff, on if it is approved for heavy industrial, and they want to lease some of that land out for some other purpose. Does that go through planning and zoning? Does it go through city council, or is as long as it's a use defined as allowed in heavy industrial, it would be able to go through with normal checks and balances? Is that correct?
Right, as long as it's allowed. And then, so if it's not allowed, then if it's not in the zoning ordinance as an allowed use, then they wouldn't be allowed to lease.
And is there any sort of quick synopsis of the differences in what's allowed in light versus heavy?
The heavy industrial does allow just about any kind of industrial use. There are heavy industrial uses that we don't really have in Cedar Falls. I probably won't consider those. And the land, the M2 district requires some of those really intensive uses to have to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. That's already set up in the zoning ordinance. I can't list them off the top of my head, but we really don't have a history of those kind of heavy industrial uses in Cedar Falls.
Okay. I do think that knowing that we aren't going to take immediate action on this, either of these items tonight, I think that would be really beneficial if we could have possibly at the next meeting, just to be able to explain to people what the definitions are, what the differences are, because once you do make it heavy, then any future uses of the land, leased or otherwise, would be affected. So I think that would be helpful on the side. We also had someone speak to, you mentioned the noise is very minimal of the generators in the building. What about heat, I guess?
What about what?
Heat? Heat. Give off much heat, these machines? And how does that dissipate? And
Sure. So on the building, there will be fans that take air in and then they exhaust out the roof. They're engines, so they're going to generate heat. But the majority of it will go out a stack. It's not going to be like our streeter station where it's a 300-foot stack or anything like that. But we do have to, when we work with the Iowa DNR on, our environmental permitting, there'll be, I'm sure that'll all be looked at as far as what stack height is required. But the installations that we've looked at have generally been in the 100-foot level. So heat, just like on your car, there's outside radiators that the jacket water from the engines goes out, and then the outside air is what cools it's not a cooling tower, but it's a bank of fans and radiators basically, and then it just blows ambient air across it to cool the jacket water.
And your system that you're thinking about proposing or building has the closed loop.
Correct, right. There won't be any wells on this site. We won't be discharging any water or oil or anything like that. Anything else I can address?
Handle the questions, you feel?
Do you have another question?
Feel like that? I think we certainly could, just coming up, and I would just say, just going forward, we really appreciate the comments and the discussion we've had thus far, and in the interest of the meeting and keeping it kind of humming along, I would just ask maybe if we could try and keep future comments and questions to about 2 minutes maybe per person would be great. But yeah, come on up if you have a question, and we just need you at the microphone. Name and address, please.
Thank you, guys. My name is Rob Zay. I live at 6728 Viking Road. So the new proposal will be out my front window. So obviously there's a lot of questions as far as height and noise and everything else that you guys are starting to address. Is there any kind of preliminary plans? What the building structures are going to look like? How tall they're going to be? Is there smokestacks? Is there, there's a lot of variables that are coming online here real quick. Obviously, there's huge concerns here with where it's placed. Was that site that it's being placed on, was that originally built for that from the get-go? That pad, I guess I was wondering if this was a plan the whole time and they just got sideswiped by it, or where that all kind of lays at, because it seems a little ironic that substation's there, that site's been built, and all that, so I don't know what's going on there, but would like to be, a part of what we're going to be looking at out the front window. Ever since you took the hill off, when you built the pond, Highway 20 is loud and proud in our front door now. So anytime we get a southern wind, I'm very concerned about the cooling fans, all that, and I'm sure there's ways to bring that sound down. I'd like to know the decibel levels of where that is tolerable at the building site and what we're expecting as a homeowner across the street. So I appreciate all that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you said you had something. Yep. If anyone else, feel free to come up to the microphone.
Andrea Kettle again. I just live down in the Arbors subdivision, and actually we moved here from Wisconsin in 2018 and built a home over there because of the new elementary school, and it's been a really great place to live. And the values, like people have mentioned, that Cedar Falls seems to really value well-being, parks, green spaces, just kind of nature and beauty. But that's just kind of my comment that I wanted to make. But I have kind of two questions, and I know that Brent mentioned it, and then I know that Karen had kind of mentioned like that's a different issue, we can't talk about that, but I do have a concern or a question. Can CFU operate their new energy center under a light zone instead of a heavy zone? And I know you mentioned there's issues with the current zoning for where the current CFU plant is. So will that have to also change then to heavy? And then my second question would be, I guess, yeah, because there's two issues, right? The actual potential Bitcoin currency, cryptocurrency thing, or just simply the CFU energy. new building, I guess, has an environmental impact study, people have mentioned it, noise, property values, environmental impact, been conducted anywhere as far as similar areas? And I guess I'm thinking ahead with the cryptocurrency to see if they've done any studies, if that is going to be built in a similar residential area, to see actual impacts on nearby homes and nearby people. So, yeah. So I think it's a big deal to address the zoning. Can they operate, first of all, under a light zone with their new power plant?
Thank you very much. Not to get ahead of myself on it, but there's a good chance that the next part of the agenda might help with some of those questions too. But I did take some notes to make sure that we are able to circle back. Anyone else for this item at all? Yeah, please.
Hello, I'm Bill Skubal. I'm the director of used to be the director of operations. I'm the director of energy resources now at CFU. And I just do need to make it clarifying, and forgive Tom, he wasn't part of the conversations. There have been some conversations on this particular property that CFU the power plant is going to be on the south part of that property. Right now, we're adamant we want to own it, but we don't have any immediate plans for the north portion of this property. We do want to own it for strategic purposes. 50 years from now, we have no idea what new stuff is going to be there, but having it next to a power plant and next to that substation is probably where you're going to want it. And like I said, at this point in time, we have no clue what that is, if that's some kind of battery, if it's hydrogen, if you name it. That's way too far in the future for us to plan anything specific. So what our goal was, but there have been some conversations on what would we do with that, and that could be crypto mining on that. And whether that's allowed by the ordinance or not is, I guess, what you guys are here to decide. But that was, our power plant is going to be on the southern portion of that property, down based on Technology Parkway. And we need a sizable chunk of that to be a good neighbor and to make sure that we can screen and keep the noise down and the site and everything else. But that takes real estate to make all that happen. And when we get the site, we do not have a site plan. We're probably a long ways from a site plan on that, of making sure we meet all those plans. That would have to go before the city to approve or suggest changes to any of that. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, just want to double check one last time if there's any other comments on this agenda item from anyone from the public. I feel like there were a couple questions. I do have them written down. We'll see if they get answered in the next one, or maybe we could make sure we put that as information we want to receive in advance of the next meeting will be kind of the plan. So at that point, I see no other public comment, so I guess we could bring it back for just discussion with the commission. Are there questions? Is there further information we would like anyone to provide before the next hearing on this?
I would like to see some additional environmental studies done, looking at like water impact, other types of resource needs around any type of development like this. I think before we can make an educated decision about this, we need to really know that impact.
For the zoning of the property to M2?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any benchmarking where a plant of this size and type exists somewhere where we could, I don't know, say a picture, have some of those, kind of see what it looks like where it would be locally. Something like that would probably, yep.
For the record, as I mentioned, I would love to see the differences between the two different zoning types, what is allowed, what is not, both in regards to, especially with, and I know There is work being done on an overall noise ordinance update, I believe, for the city of Cedar Falls. I don't think it's anything that's official or completed or anything like that, but I know that would be a part of this, but I would still be curious, lighting, I think someone mentioned, as a concern in at least one of the emails, and just noise and just in general. And knowing that we can't exactly predict what will take place on the north part of the property or anything like that, but to know what would be allowed without having to come back again to the commission, and the differences between light and heavy would be very beneficial in a way. And with that, then I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to wait for the next item to satisfy my other question. Any other requests for staff or the applicant or anyone else?
Is it possible to sit down with the neighboring property owners and families about, kind of getting them more in the loop of what could potentially be happening, hypothetically?
Yeah, I mean, I think, see if you can answer that question. I think they are quite early in their planning of this facility, and so, it could be opportunities for good neighbor meetings and for information out there in the community about what the plant's going to look like. And
there's a requirement. We will eventually have public informational meetings for the public to come to when we get, we're working with architect, we're doing a lot of engineering work, so we can get a good rendering together of what this is going to look like, complete noise studies, things like that. We're still kind of in the early stages of that. So, but we'll definitely be having more public informational meetings when I think that's part of the requirement.
So then our next decision really is, it sounds like, I think, pretty unanimous that there's definitely more information and some conversations and then learnings for all parties involved. We have on here to potentially set a public hearing for the next meeting, and we also discussed that maybe there's already plenty on that agenda. Would anybody be opposed if we gave this a little bit more time in order to get all this information that I think we've requested in order to get some questions answered? Would we want to wait until maybe the meeting after April 8th? Does anybody have any qualms with that?
No, I don't. And that would be the 22nd.
So the 22nd
the meeting
for now.
after that's April 22nd.
Okay. I guess that would be my proposal. I don't think we have an official motion on.
So I would make a motion for setting the public
Motion to
hearing.
set a public hearing on April 22nd.
Second.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. We will carry that on a couple weeks from now. Well, a month from now, give or take. So thank you very much. Next on our agenda is a zoning text amendment for cryptocurrency mining utilities and public facilities. And I believe we have a presentation on. Yep. Thank you.
Yes, we have Leslie Oberholzer here from Codametrics, and they have been working with the city on a request to draft some ordinance language and best practices for cryptocurrency mining and some updates to those zones that we talked about before related to where public utilities would be allowed. So Leslie's here to give you kind of an overview of the research they've done and the work with the city on drafting an ordinance for consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. So I am here to present cryptocurrency mining use amendment for the current zoning ordinance. What I'm going to do is walk you through what our project scope, what we were asked to do, what some of the common concerns are for this type of use, and then some of the sort of pieces of the actual amendment that has been drafted. The definitions, which zones it would be permitted in, what the approval process is, a little bit about how to address accessory structures, which is a kind of key component to this, and separation distances for uses, noise, which is a big one, and then buffers and landscape. Wow, changes. So our project scope was to very specifically to add cryptocurrency mining as a use to the existing ordinance. What we did do was research the known issues associated with this use, research examples of language from other cities, both in Iowa and neighboring states, as well as kind of across the country, so to draft a set of regulations that would address those impacts for this use on surrounding parcels, particularly residential uses. But I will say that there was a very collaborative process with staff. So we have been back and forth with staff on this a lot. And so I may defer some questions to staff along the way. Specifically in looking at this as a use, it is considered a manufacturing use. It has some very specific concerns, cryptocurrency mining, that you can read about in newspaper articles because there are plenty online. First, in terms of energy usage, water usage, both of those are concerns for this type of use. Also, the fact that multiple accessory structures are often used with this use, which is fairly unique. But noise seems to be the sort of main concern, and so I'll address that in just a minute. We created a series of definitions to define this use, to define what cryptocurrency is based on the zoning ordinance, to define cryptocurrency mining for the zoning ordinance, and what is a cryptocurrency mine. I'm not going to read those to you, just know that those definitions are included. And then to first look at what zones this particular use would be permitted in. And so we are proposing to permit it in the M1, the M2, and the MP planned industrial district. So in all of the industrial districts, there is a little bit of differentiation between how we propose it being used in all of those districts, or in the difference between M1 and M2. We have proposed for it to be allowed as a permitted use, but it would be subject to use-specific regulations, and I'm going to kind of walk you through what those use-specific regulations would encompass. And then also that this particular use would require review by P&Z, yourselves, as well as final approval by the City Council in all of the zones. So first off, site plan approval would be required. So site plan would be reviewed by staff, and there's a whole series of submittals that would be required. First would be written verification from CFU that just related to the energy usage. Written verification from any other permitting and licensing agency that would be necessary. A water cooling plan, which I'll explain in just a minute. A pre-construction noise study, so going out onto the site initially and doing a noise study to see what those levels are right now. And then a noise and vibration mitigation plan would be required, as well as a buffer and landscape plan. And I think those two are probably going to go together. Also, we would require a community outreach summary. So a part of this process would be to hold a meeting with notice mailed to properties within 500 feet of the site and to post a sign. But then, of course, then P&Z review and recommendation, and then council approval would be required. And then the last two submittals that would be needed would be an operations plan as well as a decommissioning plan. So the proposal is for this particular use to use the principal building setbacks and standards that already exist in the M1 and M2. That's essentially 25 feet from the front lot line and 25 feet or 40 feet, depending on M1 or M2, for the rear lot line. But we are also proposing setbacks for the accessory structures, which would include the containers that you see an example here on the screen of what the equipment might be enclosed within. And those would have a setback from the street of at least 50 feet and 20 feet from in the M1, and 40 feet if it's adjacent to a different district. In M2, it would have 20 feet and then not less than 100 feet from another district, except for M1. Additionally, there would be a minimum of 1,000 feet from any residential, mixed-use, or character district within the city, and then 500 feet from any residential use, general educational facility, or public park. And that would be measured from the exterior wall of the nearest building or structure, so an accessory structure, to the lot line of that district or use. City Council could approve a reduction in that separation as drafted in this proposal if the residential use, educational facility, or public park is located in a commercial, industrial, public, or agricultural district, and if the City Council determines that noise mitigation meets, that it's in compliance with the noise standards in the noise ordinance. So as I said, it seems to be, just from our research, that the primary concern for these types of facilities is the noise. The noise from many of the facilities has been described in the newspaper articles as a mechanical howl or a relentless sort of low frequency hum. Most of that is caused because the sort of older way of cooling these facilities is with high-speed cooling fans. So the newer mitigation measures that have been incorporated into sort of newer facilities that we have found in some of our research is to use immersion cooling instead of air cooling fans, to create a mitigation plan with acoustic barriers and enclosing any of those fans, to have distances from residential districts and uses so that that noise can dissipate across that land, and to establish noise limits and to measure those, the noise both pre and post-construction. So as I said, this is what has been incorporated into this draft. The first is that any cryptocurrency mine use must employ a closed-loop hydro-cooling technology system, that open-loop hydro-cooling systems and air-cooled systems are expressly prohibited. And again, this is mostly based on the noise, but also based on the water usage that would be needed. Second would be to enclose the equipment as much as possible. So what we have proposed is that in the M1, any cryptocurrency equipment would be fully enclosed in a principal building on the site, so construction of an actual building. But in the M2, it could be enclosed in either a building or in what is called a UL-listed structure or a container like you've seen in some of those images. So the idea would be that they would have to be enclosed in a building if this was if it was located in an M1 zone. Again, we've incorporated the separation distances, which should help with the noise, noise mitigation plan, and noise monitoring. So as I've already said, we have a pre-construction and a post-construction noise study proposed that would be studied by a third-party city-approved acoustic engineer. So the city would have to approve who it was. It would be a third party, and they would go out there again on the site before construction and then measure post-construction as well, documenting daytime and nighttime baseline noise levels at the property line of the subject site, as well as the property lines of any residential uses, schools, libraries, hospitals within 500 feet of the site. I know it's not under your purview. This is not part of the zoning code, so this is not part of what we are proposing today. But we are looking at modifying some of the noise regulations in Chapter 15, Article 3. Right now, the table that you see it's essentially the same. We aren't proposing to reduce the decibel levels for any of the districts. What we are doing is we're proposing to add a requirement for continuous noises to also have that 5 decibel reduction. Right now, the current regulation is for pure tone noises or impulsive noises, and so adding continuous noises, which would be a continuous level over a period of time, which is typical of these kinds of fans and things. And so the way, additionally, we're proposing to reduce the noise in proximity to the residential or other districts, or a residential use. So the idea would be that if you are abutting any one of these other districts, then you would automatically have to go down to the noise level that those particular districts would require. So if you're adjacent to a residential district, you would have to lower your noise level down to 55 decibels or 50 if you had a continuous or pure tone noise. So again, the concerns that we have addressed related to noise in the actual use-specific standards of the cryptocurrency mining use and the zoning ordinance would be addressed by the cooling system fan. We're addressing the cooling system fan noise with the hydro cooling requirement, and then again the location of the noise source and the mitigation of the noise by blocking the noise as much as possible. But then the other 2 pieces would be addressed in this other code, a city ordinance, not part of the zoning ordinance. And so the last piece is that we have proposed buffers and landscaping to try to address some of those elements. So within that 50-foot street frontage buffer, we're proposing to require an 8-foot steel fence or wall. It would be a steel picket fence, and then large trees 30 feet on center, so a fairly dense sort of screening along the front to screen all of the accessory structures, shrubs, ornamental grasses and such along at least 65% of that buffer wall. And then for any noise mitigation wall or barrier, we're proposing to incorporate those same sort of elements to break down that wall, so it wouldn't be just a sheer wall. And then finally, that accessory structures and equipment must be fully screened from neighboring properties to a height of 8 feet, similar to that street frontage buffer. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Does the commission have any questions either for consultants or for staff?
I got a question for staff. Currently, how many locations in Cedar Falls are mining current cryptocurrency right now?
I believe, I mean, I had maybe asked CFU, that they're holding up a 3, so three sites, because they're usually near, power sources, so they're near, near power stations.
So, and if we change the zoning, those places would be grandfathered in wherever they are, or they would have to be, so they wouldn't have to move, but any future development for cryptocurrency would have to fall into that zoning.
Right, that's correct. There is some provisions in this ordinance related to existing ones, and what would need to happen if they were to change or be decommissioned, they would have to bring them into compliance. So those are in the ordinance. You can read them if you like. They're addressing any nonconformities on the existing sites to the extent possible. But you're correct; they're grandfathered in.
Okay. Does that also include replacement equipment? Using like best practice, quiet running equipment? I mean, I assume you can't buy a noisy fan, but...
Right. They would have any changes they would make have to bring it closer into compliance.
Okay. I guess a follow-up on my question. Has there been a lot of complaints about the current 3 locations within the city where current cryptocurrency is being mined currently?
We have received some complaints for an existing facility in the industrial park from the neighboring property, and the Simple Mine is working to address those. We're monitoring what the noise, our noise equipment, and they have a plan to mitigate the noise on that site by changing it out from a fan-cooled to a water-cooled. So that's their plan in the future, to try to do that to reduce the noise in that that site.
Thank you.
I have a question for the consultant, if you don't mind. So when you were doing your research on communities and other areas that had similar ordinances, like, what would you say the proportion is of like cities that had an outright ban versus, an ordinance that was heavily regulated versus, sort of free flowing? Like, what did that look like as you were doing that background research?
There are not a lot of we didn't come across any that had banned them. I don't believe. Did you guys? No. Not necessarily. I'm not familiar with any. I will say that if you notice on some of the slides, many of the requirements that we had folded in, we found in other communities. Sometimes the distances were smaller, sometimes none of the distances were greater than what we were proposing here, I don't think. The cargo containers, however, the idea of doing the accessory containers are prohibited in some places, but the use itself is not necessarily prohibited.
Great, thank you.
I actually had a follow-up on that because one of the ones you mentioned cargo containers, and in our presentation we saw accessory structures. Are they one and the same? So we are not proposing to, in the draft, we're not proposing to ban cargo containers. Can you speak to why cargo containers specifically were focused compared to some other type of accessory structure in some of those other areas?
So I'm not quite sure what your question was, but they aren't necessarily called cargo containers. They're specifically created for the specific use. They sort of look like cargo containers, but I will say that I think that they are prohibited in other places because of the way that they look, and that you need a lot of you need a lot of them in order for it to work. And so that's specifically why in the M1 we put that they needed to be, the equipment had to be in a principal building, an actual building, whereas in M2 we were allowing them to be in these accessory structures, and as many accessory structures as would be needed. So it makes it sort of a more heavier use when it has all of those containers out on a property.
But the decimals would still be, the decimal regulations would still be the same, whether it's...
apply the same, yes.
So you mentioned that we're looking at the technologies at some, like the quieter sites or whatever. Do you have a list of some of the places that have employed this and like some of the communities that these are running in that you came across?
Well, I have this list of communities that allow it, and there are some communities in Iowa that I believe staff actually spoke to and visited.
With the closed-loop cooling systems specifically?
Yes. We did go and tour a facility in Manchester, Iowa, that has the outdoor equipment on the site in their industrial park.
Did you by chance take decibel readings of that?
Yes, we did.
Remember what it came off? Top of your head?
So I think the idea is that in the site, as you're running the equipment, it's loud on the site, but the point is, what's the decibel reading at the property line where it abuts some neighboring property? So the idea is they use noise mitigation techniques at the boundaries of the site so that it doesn't spill over. That's the intent with the noise ordinance, is that you can be noisy on your site, but where you're abutting adjacent properties, you have to meet the noise limitation in the ordinance.
If you'll allow me, maybe some silly questions, but just to take a step back for a second. The Viking Energy Center, would that be moving forward, let's say the cryptocurrency mining, for some reason we don't allow that, would that be moving forward without the cryptocurrency mining operation happening? Is the plan, no matter what, to have the Viking Energy Center be built in that area?
I think that is the plan with CFU, and we've had that, they've been planning that for some time, and I think that's well known. I think they have it out there on social media that they're planning the Viking Energy Center. When we did the plat recently, we mentioned that CFU was planning to build a power
And
Center,
that still would require the change from M1 to M2 because of the height restriction only? Is that?
Well, we were trying to consider, so stepping back, with zoning, typically as it's not allowed unless it's a listed use. And what we realized when we were just investigating the cryptocurrency mining is we said, oh, well, CFU is also planning a power plant here where our power plant's allowed. And we realized we have new use categories that were adopted when we did the downtown code that were never in the code before. And now we have these categories. And our plan in the future, as you know, is to update our zoning ordinance to be a modern zoning ordinance. And we have these old lists of uses that have been there since the 1970s that have not been updated. And so the plan, as we update our zoning ordinance, is to use those new use categories and use those as listed in each zoning district separately to say, be more clear about what we're allowing in each zoning district, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial. So we thought as part of this updating the ordinance, we should update the ordinance right now to use that new use category that we have created in the ordinance. So it was kind of tangential to this idea that we're updating it to potentially allow cryptocurrency mining. But if the decision is not to allow the cryptocurrency mining, it certainly can be separated from allowing a public utility in the M1 and M2 districts in Cedar Falls. And as I mentioned previously, all public uses can also be rezoned to public, which is a P designation, and we have inconsistencies across the city for schools and parks and city facilities and CFU. There's a lot of inconsistency in our zoning for those. I think it's always just been accepted those are public uses and are allowed.
Sure.
But we're trying to, as we're trying to get better about being clear about what things are allowed. So that is the other option, is to rezone the property to public.
Sure.
So it's not the only option here that we can, consider.
Okay, so I think it makes sense. So in theory, if we move forward to make this an M2 and change the zoning code, then in the future power plants and public utilities would be required in all, or would be allowable use in M2. But it sounds like with this adjustment here, the cryptocurrency would also have to go through a special submission application process as well. So no matter what, that wouldn't be automatically allowed, but in the future, if this moves forward, M2 power plants would be allowed in all M2s and wouldn't have to go through the process, right?
We haven't proposed any particular criteria for power plants because they were public uses.
Sure.
But for the cryptocurrency mining, as proposed here in this particular ordinance, they would be required to go through a public process to get approved through P&Z and council. And they're separate uses, so the decision can be made to allow one and not allow the other. It's all on the table at this point.
Got it. Thank you so much for clarifying.
Was there any reason why cryptocurrencies were specifically called out and not, AI centers or data centers? I mean, it sounds like it's kind of all the same equipment, maybe? Like, what's...
I'll let maybe Leslie answer the question, but we can also answer it as well. That's really not, and maybe I'll just give a brief answer, and then if Leslie has more to add to it, or JD has done quite a bit of research as well. JD's been really involved in doing a lot of research on this project. That data centers have a different use, and a lot of times they're generating power all the time, and they don't want to be shut down. They want to be in operation all the time. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but from our conversations with the cryptocurrency mining company and with CFU was that they can be shut down within 30 minutes of notice by CFU. And so the power can be, during peak times, they can be shut down so that the energy level is moderated over time. Whereas a data center, a lot of the concerns across the country about data centers is they're very large. They want to operate 24/7. They don't want to be shut down, and there's concerns about the water usage and the amount of power that those data centers require versus the amount of power and how it's regulated for a cryptocurrency mining operation. So they're not the same thing. Is there anything else you want to add, Leslie?
I would just reiterate the scale of them is different because the cryptocurrency mining operation could be much smaller than typically what a data center is. They just are really giant.
So conceptually, they're the same. It's just the scale and the ability to turn it on and off.
Flexibility.
Flexibility.
I'm also not an expert on data centers and cryptocurrency mining, so at all. But I will say that I think this idea of them being located in the boxes as opposed to in a building, I have not seen a data center in something that small. I mean, it's a big, huge, giant building all the time. So the scale, not just in the size of it, but the fact that it can be in these sort of accessory structures is different. It's just different.
Okay.
CFU might be able to answer some of those questions as well, maybe better than we can if you want.
Yep, I just want to make sure that we're...
If you're done with staff, you can open it up then.
Yeah, for CFU. Yep, but so I guess I know CFU isn't technically the applicant on this, as this is zoning code.
Right.
But,
Again, Bill Skubal with CFU, Director of Energy Resources. For us, it is a drastically different conversation, whether it's what we call a firm load. You know, they're looking for 5 nines of reliability. The lights never go off for any reason versus somebody that can interrupt 5% of the year for, you know, anytime the power prices get high, there's an emergency on the system, anything like that. So for us, it's a drastically different operation. Basically, a crypto miner is living on the excess in the system where a data center that wants 5 nines of reliability and that firm power is a load just like a John Deere or anything else. That requires a whole different level of planning on our part. So yes, for us it's a drastically different thing. However, on the outside to the normal person may not look all that different. From the power company standpoint, it is drastically different.
I think we might have a couple more questions for you, just real quick.
I may have one more question. Okay. I just want to get educated on the closed-loop cooling system, and I know it was mentioned for the power plant that your motors would have a closed loop, and I know cryptocurrency mining is also a closed loop, but you know they always talk about the impact on water. So is this a one-time fill system and it keeps recirculating and you never fill it again, or does it?
Right. You're familiar with how your radiator in your car works.
Correct.
Same thing.
So, but there would be some you'd have to add or replace.
Yeah, like once in a while your radiator gets low in your car, you have to add a little bit. I mean, but I think the big concern that you read in the news media, there are data centers out there that like take water out of our water main, run it through there, and run it down the drain just to cool it off. And there are some of those in the state of Iowa that I'm aware of.
But this would be a closed loop and just
closed loop. It would not do that
for your system. I'm not speaking for, you know, you're not speaking, I know, for cryptocurrency.
Right, but yes, and we do have on one of our existing facilities, we do have an open loop system on one of our generating units. Okay. That's very, very, very old.
Okay. All right.
I have a follow-up, hopefully, for you, too. You know, earlier, or maybe a couple times, we've heard that this is a benefit to CFU if there were cryptocurrency mines. I guess I'm not following exactly why are they helpful for CFU, or in theory, and I'm not an economist, but supply and demand, and if all of our electricity is going one way, does that not impact the prices that general public pay for electricity?
Right, and in general, we have always, with the crypto miners we do have, they pay 100% of their costs. We do not pass any costs at all to any other customer in our system, and that's you know, something we've always done. The big value they have is with that curtailability, when power prices are sky high, they're getting shut off. you know, anytime. So what that does is that lowers that average cost of power because we're buying a lot less. They're using the power when it's dirt cheap in the middle of the night. We see a lot of times on fair weather days, day like today, the wind's blowing really hard. Power prices are absolutely dirt cheap. We don't run any of our local facilities at all in those times, and we're buying off the grid, and they're living on that energy is what they're doing. So they're living on the cheap energy when it's available, and when it's not, they're shutting down. So as long as we have the capacity in our lines to feed them, it's not really a burden on our system. And when it does become a burden, we shut them off. So
I think that helps.
Clear as mud.
A little bit dirty mud. Thank you. All right, so, give us just a sec, because we have to follow the process of the meeting, please, but we will have a second, yep. So just to make sure we're clear before we do open up public comment, which will be next, there is not a cryptocurrency facility being proposed as part of anything we're discussing, a specific one, correct?
We were asked to create some rules for a potential.
Yes, and then that potential, based on, this is a draft, it can be edited, it can be adapted, that potential would have to come through a full process.
Right.
Based on this draft. So there is no cryptocurrency mine being proposed or considered tonight directly. Of course, obviously, this is about any sort of guardrails or limitations or regulations that could be used for any future cryptocurrency mine, possibly at the CFU site or anywhere else in town, I think is what I understand. So just setting that framework, I certainly would now open it up for any public comment or questions or anything like that. If you come to the microphone, that'd be great. Yeah.
This is just a quick comment on data centers as a general rule. I do have an MBA, by the way, as well. So I do follow these issues very closely. And obviously, one of the things about crypto is the market fluctuates sometimes wildly. With respect to some of the cryptocurrency miners that we're actually seeing around this country, a number of them are actually dropping the crypto and going to serving essentially inference. In other words, they are basically turning into a data center that serves AI, which, you know, I can see why that would be. Like I said, crypto does have a tendency to fluctuate wildly. In fact, recently it crashed pretty seriously. But I think that it is important to realize that, yes, those two things very much have a lot in common. And in fact, we do see here in the United States that a number of those miners have, in fact, gone over to basically functioning as data centers. All right?
Thank you. Are there any other, feel free to, anyone?
Question. Just a clarification of this plan. It looks like the proposal is to make it possible to have crypto mining in light industrial, which, you know, with crypto mines already operating in Cedar Falls. So I'm curious, it looks like if they operate in light industrial, they have to have a few more guardrails, a few more restrictions, heavy industrial less. And with what you were saying about being behind on changing zoning regulations and changing these zones to meet possible future regulations that haven't been created yet, I guess I'm curious about why we would change this area to heavy industrial if this would be allowed anyway and you could zone the plant public, and is all of this a done deal? So I'm curious, I mean, this would be, crypto mining would be included in light industrial?
Address up this way, please.
Yeah, I was just, that was for her. I asked that question earlier. So crypto would be allowed in light industrial and is already? No, okay, but that is your proposal.
It's not my proposal.
That is the proposal you presented, right?
The draft.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, I'm a consultant that was hired by the city to draft an ordinance. So, this is a change to the zoning ordinance to allow this particular use. It's a proposed draft change to allow this particular use in both the M1 and M2, as well as the MP. Yes.
And so to clarify on that, currently a crypto mining location could be located in multiple zoning areas right now, and this would define it too.
No, it's not allowed in Cedar Falls at all right now, according to the zoning ordinance. And I know the next question is, how do we have some then? And I think the answer to that question is, we didn't know what we didn't know. These were small installations next to substations, so when they're presented, we didn't really know what we were, what we were permitting and what the actual use was. We didn't have a good understanding of cryptocurrency mining at the time. I think this is a brand new thing that's happening across the country. And so, some of these things happened as accessory uses to, a few units would be located next to a power substation, and you probably don't even know that they're there. There's a few that are located on the existing power plant site for CFU. They're in between the buildings. They look like a lot of the other equipment on the power plant. So we reviewed those as accessory structures, not really considering, and as we got more and more questions asked about a larger installation or as a principal use on a property, we recognize that we don't have these allowed in our zoning ordinance at all. So if we don't adopt an ordinance to allow them, the way that zoning works is if it's not an allowed use in a zone, then it's not allowed. So it's not the other way around. So it's not like we allow them everywhere and we're going to restrict them now. It's that we don't allow them now. And now we're recognizing, do we want an ordinance to allow them with certain restrictions that would control some of these externalities that we've been discussing? So it's all out on the table here as whether, number one, do we want to allow them at all in Cedar Falls? And number two, if we do, what should the restrictions be for those? What are we trying to mitigate as far as those concerns that about the adjacency and the noise and the aesthetics of it? How do we mitigate those things if we are going to allow them in the community?
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yep. Any other public comment? Come on up.
I just got a quick question. So the power plant, is it going to have the same restrictions as the crypto, or do we have better restrictions for less noise for our Cedar Falls power plant and lighting and all that?
Yep. We'll check on that. Thank you.
My name is Devin Reynolds Reinhardt. I live at 1127 Maplewood Drive. I have lived in Cedar Falls for over 20 years now. I have a degree in biology from UNI, in ecology and environmental science. And it's partially with that background in mind that I'm here with extreme concern about the proposed zoning for the cryptocurrency mining operation. I'm sure most of you already know the risks involved in that, and I've seen the proposals for mitigating the problems, the limitations on noise, and the proposal with the closed-loop water cooling system. But I believe the reality is that this is ultimately mitigating damage on something that is nothing but damage. I do not believe that cryptocurrency mining facilities bring any benefit to Cedar Falls. We've already been over the water consumption concerns and the power concerns. And I believe that there are also financial concerns for the city of Cedar Falls. I don't believe it brings any financial benefit to us. It does not bring permanent jobs as a mostly automated server farm. And also, cryptocurrency mines will very often seek property tax exemptions. So that is money that would normally be going to benefit our local government and benefiting our school districts would instead be going to benefit investors elsewhere. And finally, I also wanted to address that Cedar Falls Utilities is rightfully a point of pride for our city. I believe that CFU is a model that cities around the country should emulate. I remember when President Obama came here and praised CFU for its affordability, its availability, and its overall quality. I remember how angry corporations got about that praise because they were not allowed to exploit the citizens of Cedar Falls however they wanted. And I believe that putting a current cryptocurrency mine here would just tarnish that reputation. And I think you should keep that in mind when you're going over this proposal. And I believe that's all I have to say. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Name and address for the record, please.
Mike Peters, 1117 Warwick Drive. I'm a lifelong resident of Cedar Falls. To answer Dave's question on water for those units, they are completely sealed. The best example I can give you is they're like an air conditioner at your house. If that fails, the unit shuts down and does not work. There is no water, strict water coming out of the ground for it. It has to be a system, heating, cooling system like a furnace or a boiler, because it cannot freeze. It runs into the building, it cools the units, and then it comes back out, changes the temperature, either heats outside, goes back in to keep running, or cools it on the outside. The other thing is that like Bill said, they can be shut down in minutes and lose power, and they do it probably 60, 70 times a year. The other thing that Bill will not explain to you, who do you think is the largest electrical customer in Cedar Falls? You probably think Target Cold Distribution. I can tell you right now it's Simple Mining, and their bill is over $300,000. By doing that, it has saved every resident in Cedar Falls in their electric bill. It has kept the cost down by him having to pay that money to CFU to keep our electric bill down. That is a huge benefit, in my opinion, to us as customers. We have some of the best rates in the state, if not the best rates in the state, and he's one of them. And as far as in employing people, he's probably, with this new facility, is going to have to employ 20 other people just to run the facility. Then they're full-time positions 7 days a week, almost 24 hours. Because it's not the stuff that he owns, the miners. The miners are owned by everybody across the world that wants to buy them and invest in them. So he has to keep them running, so he has to have employees there. It's a huge benefit I see for Cedar Falls, and it always will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Miller, 1319 Walnut Street. Long night, folks. I just have a couple tasks that I would ask you to do, is the research, of course. I did a little bit on this, and water and power are the most concerns, and noise is the biggest one also. These units run about 70 to 100 decibels continuously, with 110 being too loud for our ears. The water usage that they will use, you should pin that down, because our aquifers, according to the 2025 geological survey, our aquifers are really low. So I don't know, there's going to be some water used on the power plant, to do their cooling and stuff. So take that all into consideration. And then in my thing, what's in it for me? What's in it for us? How many jobs? So you have to weigh that too, as to how we're going to spend these resources, water, power, for what, 1 or 2 jobs? Just to stand there and watch computers? That's all I got. I just ask you to research it.
Thank you.
Hi there. Brett Jaden, 4127 Maryhill Drive. I'm also the business owner of Air King Filtration at 2800 Technology Parkway out in the Cedar Falls Industrial Park. The business who has had some complaints about the crypto mining facility across the way from us. Probably about the only one in the community that can speak specifically to the effects of this on a daily basis. Our front door is 200 feet from the current crypto facility that was allowed in the industrial park. It was very challenging right away. When they went live, we're running 75, 80 decibels at the property line. Brought that to everybody's attention. Adam, who's not sitting here right now, but great guy. Love Adam to death. Super good guy, and they've done a lot of good things, I think, for the community. Addressed things, have since brought those noise levels down. So right now we're running about 67, 68 decibels right at the property line, which is a little bit above where it needs to be, but as I understand, they're working on some things, and it's great to hear that they're gonna go to a closed loop system. The old technology, the current technology, with the mechanical fans, very noisy and very hard to control, as I understand. We're fan people. I own a filtration company. We make fans. I understand how this all works. I appreciate what they've done to mitigate this. I look forward to what they're going to do to further mitigate it. I hope that reduces things that much more. But as I sit in my office every day working, I have the ongoing droning noise constantly present every day, 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day in my ear. Gets a little bit annoying. Hot summer months, it gets a little bit louder. When we hit about a 55, 60 degree temperature, ambient air outside is when the fans tend to kick on full bore. Over the winter, you know, we're dropping below 50 degrees. It's a godsend. You're out there working, I could work there all day and not have to worry about any noise issues and whatnot. The things I would ask you to consider with this are a few. One, I like the idea that was proposed on them going to maybe a reduction on a continuous noise basis to 60 decibels. I think that would be significant. If this does go through, I think that would be significant change and very welcome. The containers and the appearance of things is a bit of a concern from my standpoint. Having an 8-foot fence, some landscaping is great. We were held to very high standards on the part of having to build our building aesthetically. Having containers, whatever you want to call them, out in the industrial park, an 8-foot fence isn't going to hide a 20-foot container. You look at a lot of the containers they have down on the property, they're 2-story facilities. So I think it's going to maybe put a little bit of a damper on what the city and the planning and zoning has worked very hard on for years to have us not only have a great industrial park, but a good-looking industrial park. That means a lot to people. Beyond that, I don't have any significant issues with it, but the noise can be annoying. It is annoying. And I think if we get some of those specifics put in place, I'm very anxious to hear and literally hear what the closed loop cooling will do to help things, because right now in the current system is not sustainable. We're going on 2 years with that facility up and live. We've made progress. I look forward to continued progress, and I hope you guys take all these points into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again, Dylan Southall at 510 Franklin Street. I used to be an employee at Cedar Falls Utilities as a communications technician. And funny enough, I actually installed the fiber at Air King, and I installed it across the way at the data center that he was referring to. So I'm got a bit of a two-face here. But hence on former, because I know that you can't be a city employee speaking here, from what I understand from statutes. Regardless, I'm here to provide comment on what's on the table tonight. Before you is not just a zoning map change, but it is the foundation to a $64 million power plant and a cryptocurrency mining operation that are being developed hand in hand. And the public has received minimal notice to provide feedback. Some of this will be in contrast to what the Cedar Falls Utilities representatives will have to say. But some of this is just based on the limited research I was able to do with the limited notice we were given. So take with this a bit of a caveat. Cedar Falls Utilities already leases land to Simple Mining and Energy Conservation Group for crypto mining. These companies pay a mere fraction of what you and I pay for the same electricity. Simple Mining advertises hosting rates as low as 7 cents per kilowatt hour to their customers, which tells you CFU's wholesale rate to them is substantially lower than that. Residential customers pay over 5 cents per kilowatt hour just for the same energy charge. The math doesn't work out unless the ratepayers are covering the difference. I want to talk about how this process has been structured today and why it should concern everyone in this room. In a normal rezoning, from what I understand, a private developer submits a petition and the city evaluates it at an arm's length. That tension between applicant and regulator is what protects the public. But looking at what's happening here, the city of Cedar Falls is the petitioner in this rezoning. The city owns CFU. CFU is the utility that will build the $64 million power plant. CFU is the entity that already leases land to crypto miners and sells them electricity at what I estimate at about ½ penny per kilowatt hour. The city's own community development staff wrote the recommendation to approve this, and the city hired their own consultant who drafted the crypto mining language that would permit this use. So let me get this straight. The same utility is the landowner, the utility provider, the landlord to the crypto miners, the applicant for the rezoning, the regulator evaluating the rezoning, the drafter of any new code, and the body that will ultimately vote on it. There is no independent party anywhere in this chain that is asking whether this is a good deal for the residents. No independent cost of service analysis, no independent noise study, no, and key on independent environmental study, no independent financial review of what degree these ratepayers are subsidizing this private enterprise. When the applicant, the regulator, and the utility provider are all the same entity, who is looking out for us? Who is looking out for the ratepayer? This process needs checks and balances. And let's not forget that Blackhawk County has already voted against crypto mining rezoning in 2022. So why are we here? This proposal routes around the county's decision to go through and decides to go through the city process instead. The public deserves to understand why a decision that the county has already weighed in on is now being revisited through a different door. I will close with this. Bitcoin is currently trading well below the cost to mine it. CoinDesk reported a few days ago that miners are losing $19,000 on every coin that they produce. At least 5 mining companies have shut down or filed bankruptcy in 2026 alone, one of them being NF-N8 Group, and they operated here in Iowa. This industry is in crisis, and Cedar Falls is being asked to build a $64 million power plant and rezone 38 acres of land to serve it. When the miners leave, and their track record says they will, we will be left with an oversized, over-engineered power plant and its debt, the rezoned land, the infrastructure costs, and whatever waste and damage that they leave behind. They will leave with their computers and cooling fans and shipping containers. I urge this commission to delay action until a full and independent cost of service analysis, an independent noise study, an independent environmental impact study, and an independent financial review, and a genuine public engagement has been completed. The residents of Cedar Falls deserve it that much before you change the rules for an industry that may not even be here in 5 years. My full narrative is public record as it was sent to your city clerk prior to this meeting. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak to this? Yep, come up to the microphone, please.
Matt Hine, 501 Alvarado Avenue, Cedar Falls. So I want to touch on a couple of items because I am an employee of Simple Mining. And yes, one of the things we pride ourselves on is collaboration with utilities and communities. We don't sneak in anywhere. We are very open and honest about what we do. We have offered and given tours to the utilities, the city. Our door for security reasons is locked, but again, anyone that would like to see our operation, just stop by, send us an email. We would be happy to give you a tour. We are a repair center. We work on computers. It's what we do. In terms of employment, that was a concern. What value do we provide to the community? Currently, between our CEO, Adam's multiple businesses in the community, we have over 100 employees that work here. Our proposal that we would like to build in the West Industrial Park, and yes, we've been collaborating with the utility and city because this is complicated. As has been pointed out, the ordinance doesn't allow it, so we need to talk to them in order to do this correctly, to establish rules that then we can follow. That is our goal. That facility will need at least 50 employees to operate. That'll bring just our Simple Mining operation up locally to 150 employees. That may make us one of the larger employees in the industrial park. Many of the facilities in the industrial park, the Pepsi facility was mentioned, actually have no employees. They are giant empty boxes. So as planning and zoning is considering the types of businesses that take up land that the city has prepared for businesses, I suggest that you consider the amount of employment that can be brought there. In terms of the benefit to the community, who benefits? We may be one of the largest taxpayers in the city of Cedar Falls. There are complex mechanisms that make that work, but effectively our large consumption of electricity is an economic benefit to the city of Cedar Falls. We help pay for schools, we help pay for roads by our operations. It's been pointed out that cryptocurrency isn't allowed in any of the zones in the city. We're new. The ordinances haven't been updated since the 70s, as the city has proposed. A data center, actually multiple data centers, have been operating in Cedar Falls for decades. I don't believe data centers are in the ordinance either. So it's one where I'm glad that the city, and again, we have a spirit of collaboration, is working on updating ordinances to allow these types of things. In terms of water use, I can say that our largest water use is our high-efficiency flush toilets. Like we use almost no water. Again, we've got a lot of employees, so we do use a fair amount of water in our bathrooms, but that's the largest water use that we have. In terms of the subsidies, I'm just going to say that's factually inaccurate. So what you just heard from the prior speaker is factually inaccurate. Yes, it is true that cryptocurrency companies are in fact going bankrupt. They are not as good as us at running their business. Our CEO, Adam, is an exceptional business person and has built a very successful business right here in Cedar Falls. This is our headquarters. This is where we would like it to be our home. We would like to contribute to the community in terms of economic development. We certainly pay our fair share in terms of electricity, and again, a cost of service study would certainly show that that is the case. We would welcome that. Again, in the spirit of collaboration, that's how we like to operate. Those comments made, I do have some concerns with the proposed ordinance language. I want to raise a fundamental concern about how the proposed revisions are structured. The proposed language singles out cryptocurrency operations with requirements and restrictions that are not applied to other businesses that operate in the same zone. If noise limits, setback requirements, power consumption thresholds, or operational conditions are appropriate standards for protecting the community, then they should apply equally to every business in that zone, not just one category. Either these standards matter for all or are unnecessary for any. According to the American Planning Association, sound industrial zoning should be based on performance standards, measurable effects like noise, vibration, and emissions, rather than naming specific uses or technologies. Targeting a single industry by name is selective regulation, not performance-based planning. Beyond the fairness issue, the overly specific language in these revisions has a practical problem. It can be outdated almost immediately. Technology in this sector evolves faster than any ordinance revision cycle. As a concrete example, the proposed language references GPU-based computing hardware. The cryptocurrency industry moved beyond GPUs in 2020. We haven't used that technology for over 5 years. We use ASIC computers. Under overly narrow definitions, a facility could become non-conforming overnight simply because the technology does not match the exact terminology written in the code. It's not hypothetical. That's our situation right now. This matters because businesses adapt. Our business has evolved over the years and begins to look nearly identical to other data centers in town that have been operating for 20 years. The underlying infrastructure is building, power, cooling, and servers. The services is hosting computer workloads for clients, just like the other data centers in town do. If the ordinance is written so narrowly that it distinguishes between types of computation rather than the actual land use impacts of the facility, it'll create barriers to exactly the kind of economic development and diversity the industrial park is designed to promote. I urge the Commission for you to take one of two approaches. Apply uniform operational standards to all businesses within the zone based on measurable impacts like noise, traffic, utility load, or remove industry-specific language entirely. If a user category is needed, a generic principal use classification as data center would cover the full range of computing operations, cryptocurrency, AI, cloud hosting, or whatever comes next. We don't know what'll be next. We didn't exist 6 years ago. Who knows what will exist 6 years in the future? Being hyper-specific can cause an issue. So just as machine shop or fertilizer manufacturer cover a range of activities under a single heading, what we should not do is enshrine technology-specific terminology into zoning law that will need to be rewritten every time a local business seeks to bring economic benefit to the community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Looks like that's it. Sure. Yeah. Would anybody else from the public like to speak to this item at all? Name and address for the record, please.
5'2", I gotta lower this down. Hi everyone, my name is Laura Roman. I live at 204 Magnolia Drive. This is my first time here. Sorry, I didn't know it was gonna be televised. I would have dressed nicer for this. I do apologize, as other folks have mentioned, maybe some may be more aware of the effects and what Bitcoin is and crypto mining to begin with. I listened to a 45-minute webinar earlier today, so that's kind of the extent of the knowledge that I've got on this. I think one of my main questions would be in regards of cryptocurrency as a whole, understanding what type of cryptocurrency from what I understood of my 45 minutes of research. Different types might have different energy and water usage. Proof of work versus proof of stake. Proof of work seems to be what Bitcoin uses. Proof of stake might be something like Ethereum uses, and it has drastic differences between them. So I would kind of be curious about what is planned being used, what is currently being used, and what might be used in the language for policies and different things like that. In regards to Bitcoin, just some of the things that I've looked into. Bitcoin, I didn't know it had a 21 million cap. It surpassed last 20 million on March 24th of this year. The more that it's mined, the more difficult it becomes, and the more difficult that it is, the more energy that it requires. The last halving, which will reduce the Bitcoin block subsidy to zero, is expected to occur around the year 2140. So still a substantial amount of time on that sense there. And again, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong for any of this. This is just my little research that I just did. Other things that I learned about in my research, the application-specific integrated circuit that was mentioned earlier, from my understanding, can only be used for mining. It seems to me that it creates a lot more e-waste, which is something that I think is something that we don't really talk about enough in regards to our technology usage, what that means for the future generations in regards to all the waste that we create and everything like that. And I saw an article in 2024, one circuit used the same amount of energy as 2.5 homes in Texas. The article was about Texas, our energy usage. I recognize it's different here in Iowa. It also talked about how usage of Bitcoin and crypto mining work to destabilize grids, as examples shown in Texas, Tennessee, and other states, something that I think should be maybe a little bit of concern. Another thing I want to point out, 2021 UN study showed that Bitcoin is highly dependent on fossil fuels and stated that if Bitcoin were a country, its energy consumption would have ranked 27th in the world. Even if we do more green energy, it still, again, adds to the difficulty, adding to more energy usage, electricity usage, all those different things like that. And I just briefly want to quote, and again, my research was done before I knew too much about the closed circuit or the usage of fans, anything like that, but briefly just want to quote about this article I read, a 2024 Times article, and this was using fans, I believe, to cool the systems. This article was titled, "A Texas Town's Misery Underscores the Impact of Bitcoin Mines Across the U.S." Shannon Wolf, who lives about 8 miles from the plant, first assumed that the rumble was coming from a nearby train. Quote, "It has woken me from a dead sleep before," unquote, she says. The rumble, it turned out, comes from the massive cooling fans that the facility runs to keep their computers from overheating. As residents learned what had caused the din, social media platforms like Nextdoor and Facebook flooded with complaints. Quote, "This sound has been driving me to the point of insanity. I have continuous migraines, I can barely get out of my bed, vomiting, nosebleeds, and painful knots on my scalp," unquote, wrote one commentator. Quote, "All the birds have left, only buzzards remain," wrote another poster. So again, from the proposed maybe policy changes we might have, that might not be something that we might have a concern, which I think would be a good thing. If it was up to me, I would much more prefer moratorium. I don't really like the idea of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. An unregulated currency, I know, has had a history of being in maybe some muddy waters, what it's used for, why it's used. That doesn't seem to be the topic that we're discussing at this moment. While we were talking about this, I also tried to look into a little bit more of the closed loop data center, which is great for the recommendation. It seems like it uses a lot less water, or no water in that case there, other than the toilet systems, which is great for that. But it does seem, and from the little research that I was able to do, I read this article, although the move to closed loop data center cooling systems has reduced direct fresh water withdrawals by recycling internal supply, they required a 10 to 40% more electricity to operate. So something to consider also. Lastly, I guess I will say, to kind of wrap this up, mitigation is still mitigation. There's still harm happening. Even if there are actions being taken to mitigate the harm, there is harm to be done to begin with. So it's something that certainly is concerning me, and I'm glad we're able to have this opportunity to discuss it, and I'm glad that you guys seem to be putting a lot of work to look into it. But I think throughout the U.S., throughout many different states, throughout Midwest, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, I'm seeing a lot of these, whether it is AI data centers or cryptocurrency mining, a lot of communities that have been really troubled by this, and I think they have a right to be troubled. And I'm glad we have this opportunity to go ahead and talk about it and discuss, and why that might be, or maybe there might be positives. I'm not sure I'm seeing too many of them, to be honest with you guys. But thank you again, I appreciate it, and maybe we'll discuss this more at the next meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comment at all?
Can I ask a follow-up question, or is my time?
If you want to come on up, we have had quite a few comments, so maybe if we just try and keep it quick. Sure.
Dylan Southall, 510 Franklin Street. I did put on a jacket, but I am the same person. I want to, since we have the opportunity here today to put this on the record, and this would help clarify and probably help a lot of the public's feelings towards this. I'd like for either or the simple mining rep or Cedar Falls Utilities rep to come forth and say on the record that simple mining is paying the same rate that us customers, us typical ratepayers are as well. I think that'd be good. I'd prefer a yes or no answer, not a lengthy non-answer. I also wanted to mention that I forgot to mention this earlier. The data, I wasn't prepared to speak without my notes, but this Bitcoin mining facility, the benefit is that it can utilize the power that we're not using, that CFU is contractually obligated to buy. So that's from my understanding. What I'm saying here is, if that is pulled at a different rate, then how much is, and what I'm asking is, if it's pulled at a different rate, how much of a benefit is it to the community if they're utilizing it at a reduced rate? Why can we not put that into some kind of battery system, some kind of green energy that can actually be put back into the plant without actually firing up this variable essentially engine to power this part of the city? I do agree that we do need investment in our infrastructure. That's not why I'm here today. It's the utilization of the city's resources, and my concern that we have been hand in hand, perhaps since Blackhawk County has voted on this, that this design of the power plant was made with this company in mind. And I think there needs to be a large amount of scrutiny placed on this. It's a $64 million power plant, and it works off a variable load. And coincidentally, this Bitcoin mining facility can shut down under variable at various times. So I'm hearing not a lot of good answers to my questions that have come up, and I think it deserves more scrutiny here today. So I would like for either or rep to come forth and say that they pay the same rate that us residential payers also pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to? Sure.
Again, Bill Skubal with Cedar Falls Utilities. They do not pay the same rate, and that is the crypto miners are willing to shut off, and for extended periods of time, like up to a week. So I'd be happy, we would give that same rate to any customer, residential or not, in town, if they're willing to let us shut your power off for a week to save money. So that is available to any customer we have, so just to make that clear. So they have volunteered to do that. That gets them a reduced rate because it reduces our costs, and we are not contractually obligated to buy that power. That is a market that we bid into every day. So.
Can I add one quick follow-up? Is someone else, gosh, I have so many notes. I'm sorry, trying to find where I was at. But there was a comment of a cost of service study.
Yes, we do those regularly.
And would that kind of tell a difference between the rate they pay versus, does it get that specific, that granular?
It can, but I don't think it did. We haven't done one in several years. So I think the last one we did, they really weren't significant. Like they said, they started in 22, and that they were an insignificant rate class at that time. So, but we do those regularly, and those are done by our utility for all of our utilities: gas, water, electric, everything. So,
thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to go on the record and say we don't pay a residential rate, we don't pay a commercial rate, we don't pay an industrial rate. So if you look at CFU's rate book, different types of customers who are willing to agree to different terms, like any utility in North America, pay different rates. That's how utilities operate. So there is no one rate for a specific customer. During the last extreme winter storm, as CFU had pointed out, we shut down for a week to benefit the community. That is one of the things we are willing to do. We operate as a demand response resource, something that is highly valued by utilities, so that as a value proposition we bring to the community in that regard. In terms of our variable load, that has nothing to do with the Viking Energy Center, and Viking Energy Center's variable capacity has nothing to do with our variable load. In fact, both of us are very much environmentalists, that we would like to see more renewable energy on the Iowa utility system. As was pointed out during the discussion about Viking Energy Center, one of its key capabilities is enabling more renewable energy, because when the wind is blowing, we can use that energy, but the wind can die down quickly. Viking Energy Center can then pick up the community and take care of it. And a demand response resource like Simple Mining's operations can additionally curtail quickly when the wind is not available. So we get a lot of pushback environmentally, but one of the reasons that we're continuing to increase the amount of renewable energy in Iowa is because we do have flexible power plants. We do have demand response resources. So it is not a this versus that. Both of them combined are what make the system work. You can't have a wind turbine that constantly spins. You can't have a solar panel that constantly produces energy. So CFU's job is to balance the system. We help them do that. Thank you.
Matt, can I ask you a follow-up?
Yeah.
Can you speak, this is probably a more complicated question, but when and how you shut down, it's a CFU request and then, or it hits to a certain peak load. How does that process work, and do you do it every time they ask, or?
We are contractually obligated.
Okay.
Yeah, every time that they request it. Yes,
okay.
That's a part of our agreement. So Maggie, if you don't mind, it would be as if they sent you a text message and said, I need you to turn off your main breaker in your house. I don't care that it's negative 20 degrees outside. Do it now. We are willing to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? Back to the big three, the noise, energy, water. Noise is, I'm assuming, coming from the fan cooling system.
Yeah.
So if you go to a closed system, do the fans go 100% away?
No, we still, like was pointed out with the power plant, it's like your car engine. We still need a radiator. That radiator still needs a fan.
Okay.
So we have fans, but they're much larger. Our noise issue, and I really appreciate Air King contributing. Again, we really try to be good neighbors. So as soon as we knew there was a noise issue, we like a series of noise mitigation issues, and now that we know where the noise ordinance is going, we've worked with the city to design a new system that's even quieter. So just trying to demonstrate that. But why is the new system quieter? It simply has to do with our current systems use small, fast fans, and our new system uses much larger, slower fans, so they make less noise.
Okay. All right, I was going to say, the noise, we've talked about the energy and we talked about water, so we covered the big three. I was just curious on if the fans would go away if you went to all the cooling system, the water cooling system. So, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other public comment or questions at all? All right. So similar to the last item, we're not looking for direct action tonight. We are looking to carry this forward at an official public hearing in the future. Is there any other information, resources, any questions that the commission would have that maybe we could send with either CFU or Simple Mining or the staff, for that matter, that would help in advance of the next meeting? Or do you already have quite the list as it is?
I have the list from the past one, but if there's anything else.
I think it would be interesting to understand, and I don't know if this is possible because they don't do it now, but what the difference would be in noise if they were to go in a permanent structure. Like some communities have banned for lack of a better term, containers, to not be, ban the containers. So if it were to move into a building, not unlike a lot of the, the facilities of the industrial park, what that change would be, what the noise reduction would be, if that's, it seems to be an option that other communities are doing. So something to think about.
Would it also possibly see like a more vague code, to the point where this is a very specific, crypto, or, I believe you said just data centers in general, or like a more general description, potentially see something like that for the next meeting as well?
I don't think we'll be able to do that. That's a whole nother question that we haven't done the research on. So if we want to consider data centers, I think it would be a separate use that we want to create a use category for it and do the research on the potential externalities and costs and benefits of data centers, because that's not what we have on the table here. We were asked and we hired somebody to research cryptocurrency mining. So that is what we have on the table right now. Okay. So not that it couldn't be done in the future, but we certainly can't do it in a couple weeks. Okay.
To Brent's point, though, could we, thinking about some of that language about, the GPUs versus, some of the other technology, is that something that could potentially be modified, or?
Well, certainly if there's some technical aspect, some definition that we have in there, we certainly should correct it. So we are happy to talk to Matt if there's some correction on some of the definitions, but
I guess the hope is that if we go through all of this, that the definitions that we set forth are not going to be obsolete the moment we vote, or the council votes yes.
Yeah, sure.
So that we just want to have the background, the expertise to kind of make sure that we're getting our bang for our buck here. Mm-hmm.
Any others? Otherwise, I think at this point, we have to think about a date. Is
I think it,
from our previous?
Yeah, I guess I would make a motion to move to the April 22nd meeting along with item 6.
Second.
Okay, so we will set an official public hearing for April 22nd meeting. It's been a long night. I'm starting to lose track of dates. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And for those, of course, does not mean that next meeting is the final piece of this as well. We've had several items that have come before the commission before that take several meetings. There will be absolutely time for public comment as it's the official public hearing, and we will still be possibly reviewing anything that still has outstanding questions. Is kind of how this process works, in case someone's wondering. So. That is the end of our new business for tonight. Are there any commission updates?
I don't have anything for you tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. So then we would just look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have a great evening. Thank you all very much for coming, by the way.